So, sixth sense is digital. We've been talking a lot about sensors. We've been talking a lot about senses. And this session is really going to take a dive, sort of highlighting the growth in this area. So I don't have much more to say about it other than I think they're going to share some great information and great developments. So we've invited Dan, pinch hit it for me yesterday for someone who is ill, and he's back, a contributor from Forbes. And everyone was supposed to provide a motto, and Dan didn't. So we came up with another one for Dan today. Okay. I'm Dan Munro, and I'm the most interesting man in the world.
I need my Dos Equis. So thanks, Jill, and thanks for asking me to moderate this again, and for this great panel. I had a quick chance, and this is what I wanted to frame in the sense of the discussion ahead. Is typically when we think of sensor technology, so far what we've thought of has been fairly passive in the sense of attaching to us and collecting or capturing data that we can then use as either modifications or helping us with our healthcare life or helping to modify our behavior relative to health. So last year, I don't know if anybody saw this, but I actually wrote the piece last year coming out of CES around the Happy Fork. Are the guys here from the Happy Fork? Is anybody? Because they were here, I know they're here again, and they were here last year, and they captured a lot of attention. And of course, I went home and I told my wife before I wrote the article, I told her, I said, really exciting technology coming out of CES with this new intelligent fork. And of course, she chuckled and she said, that's not your problem. She said, you just need to put it down. So I think that's part of what we're looking for here is those kinds of technologies that engage with us in new ways to either modify our behavior or help us with our health. And of course, that's where the sixth sense comes in, as opposed to being passive and capturing that data. So the great panel here. Juha, you're from overseas. Do you have...
Yeah, so I'm heading a company called Omegawave. That's what I've been doing for the last 2 years. I started from the mobile industry. I was with Nokia. Then 5 years with Suunto, sports watch company, very much dealing with sensors for diving outdoor and then also for heart rate monitoring. Then I came up with the founders of this amazing technology, Omegawave. This small group of people, based on some leading Russian science, had developed a system where in just 2 minutes, through a couple of different sensors, brainwave sensor and ECG, you were able to identify athletes' body status, and then provide really actionable information for coaches and athletes, how to train in the most optimal way, how to prevent overtraining. And we got funding 2 years ago. We moved the company from Portland to Finland as we got funded there. And now we have created a full system with cloud-based services, mobile applications for team sports, for individual consumers, and now also for fitness market. In the US, we've had great successes in the professional market. Our customers include the Eagles, the Seahawks, practically all the Navy SEALs units are using our technology to really track their people. What is my recovery status? Am I ready for my best performance? And now based on this really comprehensive feedback, you are able to optimize the training loads in such a way that when the action is there, when the game day is there, or when you have to complete your mission, you are at your peak condition. So now we are taking this professional grade technology for consumers, even all the way then later to the health population, where our stress metrics and endurance metrics can provide that frequent daily feedback for individuals and corporate service providers.
Perfect. Stanley, you represent NeuroSky, and that's been here for 3 years, 4 years now?
Yeah, this is our, actually, this is our second year, believe it or not, attending CES, but we've been having people here for 4 years.
Tell us a little bit about NeuroSky.
Okay, so we're basically more of an Intel Insight kind of business. We have sensors that detect your biosignals from brain waves to ECG to muscle signal. And if you walk around the floor this time, you're going to see some of the wristbands, smartwatches and stuff that are detecting biosignals. Chances are our sensor is going to be sitting inside if you see a device like that. In fact, I'm wearing currently the most expensive one on the floor. This is $1,800. I borrowed it. If I I don't know if you guys see this, if I just sit here and do that, it's actually measuring my ECG right now. From there, of course, ECG is kind of a signal that most of us don't know what to do with it. But from there, you can calculate many different types of parameters that you can quantify yourself with. And similar to what you just mentioned, you can do a lot of these different programs to either prepare people for the peak performance, or if you just simply want to know your daily conditions, are you training better or worse? All this walking and waiting in taxi line the last 2 days kind of made my heart pump a little better, I think. I look at the record. But maybe I'm just imagining it, but I seem to walk a little faster now after 3 days compared to the first day. So there are a lot of this quantified self-movement, and our sensors play right into it. So there are quite a few of these wearable technology products out there. And after motion tracking, you can only do so much about motion tracking, and each step is how many calories you burn. After that, what do you do with that? You're wearing all these things on your body. First, you gotta ask, do I need to wear anything? Besides clothing, do I need to really wear anything? And if I do, what's helpful for me? That's a very personal question. And the trick is, who can design the next wearable technology that's designed for the masses with the features and functions that we all need and crave? And I think that's the next trend. And that's why we call this the sixth sense. It's digital. Last time I counted this morning, I still only have 5 senses, but I'm using the digital signal to tell me what I don't know, and that's the sixth sense.
It's becoming a sixth sense, yeah,
That's
absolutely.
right.
So, Dr. Bazan, you represent the Vision Council. How does this interact with our new sixth sense?
This is great. We're gathering so much data from all these new and wonderful devices. But when we sit down to analyze these data points, what are we actually going to have to do? We're probably going to be still staring at the same computer screens with a whole host of problems that we've had in the past. And the Vision Council is here to raise awareness of digital eye strain and to provide some solutions for it.
Awesome. And then, Chuck, you represent the Continua Alliance, which tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure, it's a not-for-profit association focused on the interoperability standards. So it's really taking a look at how do we drive this industry to standards so that we can collect this data from multiple instruments, not have to worry about the back end and how that data is going to flow, where it's going to go to. But it's truly focused on that activity, and it's a multinational. So we not only just see the U.S., it's an international approach to making sure that that data can flow.
So help us understand that. What are you seeing globally relative to these kinds of interoperable solutions?
So, in this case, there are 15 device classes today that have been sort of established, if you will. A device class is things like a blood pressure cuff, a weight scale, a glucometer. So there's 15 of those that have now been standardized in the industry across that spectrum. More to come, though. We actually have 22 more in development. So that's sort of a testament to where the economy and what the continued inventiveness of the industry to begin to measure people. Things like foot sensors, being able to understand what the orientation of the individual is and predicting falls in that kind of case. But I think you brought up at the very beginning of this around the sixth sense capability is that we're sort of seeing a progression of this activity. The first round, the first generation were passive sensors. Basically, I strap something on because I need to know a little bit about that individual. The second were a little bit more, they're secondary in nature and action. They don't directly engage the individual specifically, but like you just mentioned, I've got my fuel band on or I've got my cardiac monitor on. I can capture that data and then do something afterwards. So it's sort of a secondary effect. The device itself per se isn't making me do anything different. Then there's the interactive ones that we've seen, and these are like the Wii games. So I get into the game, I get to start to play with the Wii game. And I do some activity in that case in order to actually get the points or get my action in place. Then the fourth level we're starting to see now are actually devices that stimulate, and I think this is the point you're getting at, they actually stimulate the activity that you want to see happen in the individual. Those are some sort of futuristic things that are starting to happen. Some of them are actually ingestible. Some of them are actually, literally they paint them on the skin, if you will. It's like a patch that you just stick on. But they are, they're designed to actually provide immediate feedback. That you either get a shock, not really, it's not painful, but you get something that goes on and tells you, okay, I've done something wrong here. Or starting to monitor the individual from a critical condition. And these are necessary for some of the individuals who want to lead an active life, but by nature have a problem because they've had a chronic condition that's caused some damage. But we're starting to see those start to come, at least in the early phases, start to come to the market space.
Awesome. So with Omegawave, you get a chance to work with high-performance athletes in a broad sense. How are they using this to really benefit their performance, and how can we translate that to more of a consumer approach?
Right. Yeah. So the benefit we have is that we work with the leading performance sports performance institutes and some of the top professional teams, and the most advanced teams are really trying to utilize modern technologies to provide more feedback what's happening in these athletes' bodies as they get exposed to stress. So the key thing here is how does my body react to stress, whether it's mental stress, physical stress, and then also recovery, rest. Am I getting enough rest? So with our pro teams, they measure their players every morning, and from these measurements, they can, for example, pick up a situation where someone has been out a little bit too long drinking or maybe playing games. They really want to understand all the different forces that the athletes are under. So this is really a key piece in that continuous measurement, understanding how people react to same kind of training stimulus. Because some people recover fast, some people recover very slowly. So if you apply same training to all the people, when the game day comes, half of the guys are not at their best. So this daily feedback is really critical to allow either my coach or myself to decide, what's optimal for today. Should I slow down today? Can I go all out today? Or do I need more rest? So we can transfer the same learnings to top executives and to the company, to the corporate well-being area.
Good deal. So with vision, that's one of those senses that I think there was a campaign here that I heard was around auditory protection. I imagine the Vision Council is very engaged in vision protection. How is that message being delivered?
Absolutely. The Vision Council is definitely interested in that. And one of the things that we realize is we're not built to stare at electronic devices for hours on end. The number of devices that we have is going up. The screen time that we're spending in front of these devices is going up. So the digital eye strain that is a result of all that is real. I mean, you guys know how your eyes feel at the end of a day of working at the computer. Does anybody's eyes feel great? No. They're red, they're irritated, they're dried out, your vision's blurry. We're experiencing the fatigue on the temples. You're rubbing your temples like this. All that, it may be normal to you guys, but it doesn't have to be. There are things that we can do now utilizing new lens technologies and some simple things that we can do to help prevent that. So you don't have to suffer anymore. One of the shocking things that's coming out now is that we're seeing that the digital devices are emitting this high energy visible light. And that high energy visible light has been shown to have an impact on the health of the retinal cells. Right? So studies have been shown that there is evidence that it's linked to retinal problems such as macular degeneration. So not only is it having a short-term impact on our day-to-day function, but it's having a long-term health impact. So I think that raising awareness in the consumers, but also in the industry itself, that maybe some of the devices that they're putting out there, they should take a closer look at the impact that it's having on the health of the users as well.
Awesome. And Chuck, give us an idea of the sense of the roadmap ahead for the Continua Alliance in 2014.
Well, certainly. So we're starting to see continued growth in the areas across the globe. We're starting to see where organizations are picking up activities at the international level. Denmark. So what they're doing there is that they're looking at this from a perspective of a very large population, or at least 5 million people that need a monitor here and be able to start to provide a care in a different way. We heard a little bit earlier, it's sort of been a theme running today is about, when do we get rid of the hospital? And in Denmark, they're actually doing that. They're taking out hospital beds. They're out of their new systems as they begin to develop them, and they're going to treat them just like ICU centers. That's really what they're going to move it to. That means that the sensory activities that we typically would find in the hospital are moving home. And we're seeing more of that begin to happen. We're seeing that there's questions about that starting to actually rise here in the US, but more so in other developed nations. Singapore is another area where we're starting to see that happen. So it's really just, for us, it's to manage that process, be able to continue to develop and provide the support systems so that you can have millions of customers begin to connect these devices as opposed to tens of thousands of what you're seeing here on the show floor. So it's the standard capabilities and being able to make sure that you can connect that anywhere. And then also make sure that, as developers and product developers, have the ability to carry that product across boundaries. You don't have to worry about creating a US-centric version versus an EU-centric version. It can be developed once and sold anywhere in the globe. So that's sort of maintaining those activities and making sure that certainly initiatives are there. It's a policy issue too. We have to focus on some of the policy activities that are out there and saying, how are we going to make sure that we move to the right policies that don't prevent us from care today. I can't deliver care. I live in Texas. I can't get my care from somebody in Missouri today, and that's a state law and state requirement. Telehealth doesn't, the tools that I have available to me today means that I could monitor myself anywhere in the globe, but still I have to receive all my care locally. So I think removing some of those boundaries and boundary layers that we've seen today that are artificial in nature, being able to allow us to be able to really truly expand beyond that role of just a very regional-centric viewpoint of care is something that's going to be necessary as well. And I think that we're going to see other countries that are already driving that. And that's why Singapore is moving this way, because Singapore sees it as they're a healthcare center for the Middle East, for the Asia-Pac area. And they see this as a way to go out and reach even further customers because they can send these sensors home with individuals who've come to them for high-end care. So I think these are policies that are certainly going to change in that sense as well.
That's my hope too. I think looking at other countries and having that drive adoption here is helpful. Stanley, you're excited obviously about the inclusion in a number of devices here. What's on the roadmap ahead for NeuroSky in 2014? Are there other devices that you're looking at? Is this primarily the launch pad for you then, or
actually, there are quite a few things I couldn't really talk about or reveal in the CES because they're proprietary to our customers and they're launching those products. So what you're seeing here, some of them are a little more advanced and they may or may not happen. Some of them are a little passé, but the real stuff is actually waiting in the wings. But what I can say is this. I don't know if you've seen enough Star Wars and Star Trek to see that sometimes if you ask for the machine to give you a chocolate cake, it will warn you. It tastes good, but it may be bad for your daily calorie count or your health. I think that type of application and that type of devices will help us slightly adjust our fast pace of life are the best. I don't disagree with all this telemedicine and telehealth and home care and all that, but that's for people who are already encountering problems. Let's say for people who actually, your life's on the fast lane like most of us, and you really don't have time to really think about, for example, if you're waiting in a taxi line or the train, you're not going to think about health, you just want to get to your appointment, right? But if we have a little bit of a device on us and actually constantly guiding us to do a little shift here and a little shift there, avoid this, avoid that, then maybe we can prolong ourselves to avoid that. Eventually, everybody have to face death, but and I hope I can invent something that prevent us from doing that. But that's going to be like 10 or 20 years at least.
That's a different startup.
Yeah,
that's the next startup.
Different company.
Right.
But it would prevent us from suffering, perhaps, right, and prolong our life and live a healthier life. So I like to kind of put an analogy. If you're driving on the fast lane of the freeway, and it's okay if you change lanes, no problem. You're still going the same general direction, but you're avoiding obstacles. But if you have to make a U-turn, you either have to get off the exit and come back or come to a complete stop and make a U-turn. That's when you're sick, right? So when we're going at a very fast speed, the only thing we can afford to do is change lane. then when our life is in such a fast pace, and I don't know why as high-tech people, we all want to work, maybe 30 hours a day, and we don't want to stop, and we brag about it too. At least in Silicon Valley, we brag about how long we work, and somehow that's good, right? But it's really bad for your health. But if you have devices that guide you and allow you to make minor adjustments, maybe you will not encounter a big problem and require home care eventually, or be hospitalized. And I really agree, after long hours of staring at a screen, we brag about my eyes are so sore because I stared. That shouldn't be the case. It should be I stare at the screen for 5 hours and I feel fine, Superman. So these devices are going to come out, and my prediction is we haven't seen the last one of it yet. And I think it's really exciting to expect the next 2 or 3 years to see more devices.
Did you have a chance to look at any of the other sort of devices on the exhibit floor? Was there anything that stood out to you relative to sort of this sixth sense of digital?
Not only have a chance to look at the floor, I had a chance to tour quite a few of the customers' ideas, and so I would have to say the real good ideas are not shown on the floor yet.
Maybe next year.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure next year you'll see.
Yeah, next year. Did you have a chance to look at any of the exhibits and then glean information from those relative to what you see on the road ahead for Omegawave?
Yeah, I was here last year, and it's good always to compare how things are developing in 1 year's time. So clearly there are more tracking devices. I mean, there's a huge boom with activity tracking, and now also the wrist-based heart rate detection is making its way to the markets. But these are basically just data tracking devices, and the key thing is really how you utilize this data to create meaningful metrics, and then how you build value-adding applications on top of it. So only at that level we start to see real value from all this data.
Yeah. How about you? I don't know. Did you have a chance to
Sure,
wander around and see anything that stood out?
There's a few things that are starting to kind of be interesting, and it's sort of a trend sort of a thing. We certainly have seen, first and foremost, that this digital health area is growing, and it's continuing to expand. It's here in the show, and having to move around because it's actually expanding. I think that there's certainly some apps that are interesting that were out there today, that were shown by companies like United Health out there. There's also some things that it's sort of interesting to see a company like Dexcom here, developing a continuous glucose meter and showing that off as a consumer equipment. That's not typically something you would see and think about as being consumer driven in that sense, but it certainly provides for those that need it. It's a great advantage to have that kind of capability and that kind of information. What will happen, though, is that, and that's something we're working on within Continua as well, is the ability to be able to tie that directly to an insulin pump, and so that you will have immediate interactivity to be able to manage the diabetes. Ultimately, organizations like Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation are saying this is the way forward. We can now develop an artificial pancreas. But I think it's sort of an interesting show concept to see Dexcom here advertising it as a consumer product. It truly is, but it's not typically something we would have associated with that.
Yeah. On the vision side, we're seeing a lot more of heads-up displays, and probably none is more visible than Google Glass. What's the impact of those and that on becoming, in effect, yet another screen and another strain, if you will, on our eyes?
Well, Google Glass is something that I personally have very limited experience with, and as do I think the rest of the eye care industry. I know Google has been working closely with some optometrists, but I have no public data as of to what is actually happening with that heads-up display and the proximity of the machine itself being so close to the eye. So at this point, it's still too early to really say what the impact's going to be. What we do know is the impact that regular electronic devices and displays have. And I did bring a piece of technology here, a pair of computer glasses. Are you interested in taking a look and learn a little bit about them?
Absolutely.
Cool. So we should probably rewind a little bit, and just taking a poll of the audience, we're probably going to find that 70% of you guys experience some type of digital eye strain, but less than half of you actually know what to do about it. A lot of that stems because you're not wearing the proper eyewear. So if you were going on a hike, you're not going to wear your business shoes. You probably can do the hike, but it's not going to be the best performance. So if you wanted to optimize your performance, you need the right piece of equipment to do so. So if you want to optimize your performance in front of a digital screen, you're going to want to make sure that you have a pair of computer glasses. These are my regular glasses. My regular glasses allow me to see down the street exceptionally well, right? What my computer glasses allow me to do is to work at the computer exceptionally comfortably, maintaining good ocular health and clear vision. So what's different about these glasses compared to these glasses are a few key pieces of technology. One is that the lenses are engineered to provide the right prescription and the right zones for your eyes to remain clear and comfortable while you're working at the computer. So lens technology has been researched and improved over time. It's not just a single vision lens anymore. You guys struggle at computers with multifocals. Who's got a great multifocal that, multifocals currently on the market, you get this little strip and you're finding yourself straining at the computer because the zone of vision isn't good. So the newer technologies are allowing for much better zones of vision on those glasses. We're also seeing that these have a slight yellow tint to them. So contrast is enhanced. When you make things have more contrast, they're easier and more comfortable to see. If you hold these up to the light, you're going to notice that the lenses aren't shiny like mirrors. Eliminating that reflective glare is something that also will enhance the comfort levels while you're working at the computer. The newest technology that I think we're seeing is the ability to block that damaging high-energy visible light. So we're seeing treatments on these lenses that are now allowing us to work safer at the computer. Okay? So those are all very important into making sure that we are able to do the work we need to do in a calm and comfortable and clear fashion.
Awesome.
Want to take a look?
Sure. I think I actually have a prescription pair for home, but the tint, I think, is probably something that I would like. I probably would try, because I wind up a lot of hours in front of the computer, probably way too many, but much appreciated. Chuck, with all of this sensor technology capturing data, it has to be a real challenge to get a broad-based support from vendors to collaborate and share or adhere to some kind of standardized format for the sharing and use of that data. What's your experience?
Yes, many battle wounds. It's taken 7 years to really get to where we are today. We've had 5 releases of guidelines that actually help describe that. But in the early years, it was there were all-out wars in the industry because you're selecting and say, as a group saying this is what we're going to move forward with, and it does take time to get through those technology discussions. Sometimes they're not friendly. Sometimes there are you have real heartfelt battles about why technologies were originally developed for certain prospects. But ultimately, it is coming together and saying, all right, we have to move forward in a certain way. And in order to drive interoperability, you have to make tough choices. You have to constrain down, and eventually you have to say, this is the winner. And it does take time, but eventually, that's one of the things that we had to get to. And now we have a very clear set of guidelines that help us be able to say, this is how you connect point A to point B, and this is how you connect the information so that it flows into that back-end system with one consistent interface, right. So that you now have the ability to connect that information and pass it along to not only electronic medical records, but personal health records, health information exchanges. It makes it easier for developers to build UIs because they now only have to develop it once and can connect to all these different devices. And it makes it much simpler on the back end for them to transmit that data if it needs to go to a health system ultimately down the road as well. But you can steer the data now and make it go to a personal health record and your specialist if you need to as well. So I think those are, yes, while there were tough choices and tough things that it took us a while to get through, ultimately the industry itself, to drive scale, you have to get to some level of standards. Most of our companies that you see out here on the show floor are scaled to deliver tens of thousands of units. Ultimately, we need tens of millions of units on the global basis now, on a delivery basis, and there's no company that can really deliver at that scale. So you have to have the ability to plug and play different device types across these spectrums.
Sure. So with Omegawave, I'm assuming that a lot of the data is captured and then cloud-based, or how is that shared with sort of the different groups that you work with?
Yeah, so we very much tie into this kind of ecosystem that you're describing. So right now we have our own cloud, cloud architecture. So we pull data, individual data, we analyze it in the cloud, and then we create metrics that you can then look through your mobile devices and through web interface. And now we're working with different pilot partners to kind of enhance data sets for example, corporate health applications. So I think this interoperability is really key. Without that, we can't really progress with this development. So we just have pockets of information otherwise.
Stanley, are you pretty much platform agnostic, or how does that work for you?
Actually, we're not. When we provide the sensor, we actually have to provide the whole solution from ground to top, including the cloud. Not so much creating the cloud, but create an application that will fit the cloud computing choice of the customers. So a fully integrated solution, including the core technology and the software, is very essential for time to market. And the reason I say that is, if you look at the PC market, it took 20 years to kind of level off. But if you look at the smartphone market, just 5 years ago, Apple launched iPhone 1, and now it's kind of tapering off. So it's becoming faster and faster. Wearable technology, everything else we're seeing today is not going to be any different. So the design cycle has to be very fast to keep up with the demand of the consumers. And we switch so fast. Every Christmas, we're probably going to get new gadgets. And believe it or not, it takes at least a year to design something to make it at least consumer friendly, right? So the ability to provide a very fast time to market solution for the customers and the people who have a great idea to design something for the consumer is very key. They can't afford to wait for you or wait for themselves to put this hardware in and now start developing software. So it has to come in a package.
Yeah. So we're going to ask one more question and then open it up to the audience. So put your hat on for next year, sort of fast forward. In the sense of a forecast, what would you expect to be here at CES next year, and what sort of exciting things should we look forward to in the coming year?
Are you asking?
Yeah.
Okay, for next year, personally, I feel one of the best products. Gosh, I don't want to be. It's something you would wear on your wrist, but the function, one of the features, is going to, I would say, revolutionize or destroy a current existing industry.
Interesting. Okay. Well, we'll make a note of that and then come back and visit that next year and see if that holds true. How about for Omegawave?
Well, I mean, overall, we're obviously going to see a lot of wearable products when it comes to Omegawave, and we are exhibiting in Hall 2, so please come and see us. But we are now really pushing these applications, so we are going to be introducing adaptive training plans, which means that if you want to start running for your 5K or 10K, you get an application, and then every day, based on your body's measured state, our virtual coach gives you the best possible choice for that day. So this is what we are driving, and I think these kinds of developments will be key to really provide more value to consumers from that data. So adaptive applications.
Adaptive apps, okay. Chuck, how about you? Forecast next year, what does it look like?
I still think we'll see more growth on the floor. I think you're going to see continued new companies coming to the market space. I think you're going to see new innovative technologies, and an area that's going to be sort of, to your point about vision, it's actually going to be, you're going to start seeing haptic responses in different ways. Whether they actually are those sensors that you're worn, so that you don't actually have to look at them all the time. You're going to get feedback in ways that you typically haven't seen in the past. So that's what I'm starting to see now, and sort of the forecast is that you'll start to, you'll see some of the armband watches provide you feedback in mechanisms that don't require you to look at them. You'll have patches on that will provide you feedback that you don't have to look at as well, and letting you know what's going on immediately in those cases as well.
Awesome. Dr. Bazan.
Yeah, so I'd like the word to get out about digital eye strain. People that head over to thevisioncouncil.org and read up about digital eye strain in the reports. And I'd like to be able to walk around the convention floor and just go up to somebody and be like, hey, show me your computer glasses. And hopefully, people would be able to produce a pair. So instead of 70% of the people having an awareness and half of them not knowing, I'd like to see those numbers flip around.
Yeah. Awesome. So any audience questions for the panel relative to the digital sixth sense? Yes.
you know, all the screen time that they have, and do you recommend that they should start wearing those same kind of glasses as well?
That's a very interesting question. One of the lectures I used to give, I used to have a slide of about maybe a 1-year-old utilizing an iPad. You know, that used to get a laugh. That was a joke. But what's the reality nowadays? I got a 2-year-old niece who she got a tablet for Christmas, right? So we're seeing kids younger and younger start to use digital devices. My recommendation is moderation at this time. Good luck trying to get a special pair of computer glasses on, you know, your 6-year-old. So I think that we're going to have to moderate the time that our children are using on these devices. So it's going to start with first awareness, and then moderation and limiting time while we still can. And then once they get into school and they're going to start using these devices more, I do think an appropriate pair of computer glasses is going to be a solution to safeguard their vision and their ocular health. Excellent question.
Great question. Yes.
This is kind of a long-term question, but I was wondering if maybe you could comment on, we've got technology that's increasing our lifespan now, sorry, thank you. So we have technology now that's increasing our lifespan. I've seen some, you know, statistics that say like 1/3 of newborns born today will live to be 100 years old, or the first person to live to be 200 years old is already alive today. However, that only really matters to me in the case where my quality of life can also be extended, because if I'm confined to sitting on the couch watching Jeopardy for the last 100 years of my life, you know, I don't care that much. I was wondering if any of you could comment on technology that might actually not just increase the length of our lifespan, but also the quality of our lifespan along with that, and potentially also maybe our working life too, because currently our retirement age is, you know, 55 to 65. If I'm living to be 200, am I going to work later in life also?
So I'll step in right quick and just start. Yeah, we're starting to see feedback mechanisms now that help the individual. You know, whether, as I kind of outlined in the first of that. So there's sort of those devices today which provide you feedback, and then you take an interactive approach to it, or you have an interactive model to actually get there. But you know, some of that's going to be in the activity of your brain. So you're going to want to make sure you keep your brain active and make sure you don't have deterioration there. You're going to want to make sure that you're doing things with activities around physical exertion, physical movement. You know, we need to get people up and working. For those that have a chronic condition, how to manage that more effectively and how to make sure that you can have a high quality of life by doing the right things with the ability to simply by the feedback mechanism that you're getting, manage that disease state. But more importantly, I think ultimately with those that do have chronic conditions, you're going to see things like the ingestibles or these pumps that are going to be on the outside of the individual come to market. Miniaturization is going to lead us to some technologies that will allow us to be able to clean the system relatively quickly as well. Those are in development on the boards now at this point. So as you said, you know, the person who's alive today, who's going to live to 200, we already are starting to see the nanotechnology to be able to actually activate that sort of capability. And then ultimately, I think that what you're going to have to do is find a way to stimulate the individual. So we're starting to see true, you know, multi-feedback mechanisms, meaning that I take a blood pressure cuff, a weight scale, a glucometer reading, and a pulse oximeter, combine those together to provide a true health picture that then can provide a feedback. And we're starting to see now that information being able to capture. Once you've captured it on the longer term, what does it mean to have the right types of systems designed for you? And I say systems meaning that I need to exercise X times a day on a regular basis. Ties to what you're talking about with, you know, when is the optimal time to do this type of activity? You know, and making sure that I get the right sort of things. So what you're going to see is a high degree of tailorization to the individual. We sort of have the generalized activities today, but you're going to see a much higher degree of tailorization using the instrumentation and feedback.
And maybe just to pick one example, with our application, you get a very clear sense of your body's stress level. We also look at your nervous system. So in some cases, it's your cardiac system that really suffers from stress. In some cases, it's your nervous system. But right now, people don't really have a clue often that under what stress you are. So when you get this, you know, traffic light feedback, green, yellow, red, if it's yellow, it's like, hey, you need to start slowing down. If it's red, you really need to slow down, and then we give you advice what to do. So I think these kinds of intelligent feedback systems will really help people to balance their lives better.
I'd like to add a little different angle. I agree, but my view from our business is this. when we interact, we do a market research and we interact with customers. The most important thing, any device or technology that help us out must adhere to one rule. It cannot be a disruption to our behaviors, our normal behavior, daily behavior. For anyone to form a new behavior to use a technology, that technology will not succeed, no matter how much longer it's going to improve our life or lengthen our life. Unless you're dying tomorrow and somebody tells you, if you do this, you're going to live in maybe you'll change your behavior. But for example, for me, I don't know when I'll die. I know I'll die, but I don't know when. I'm not going to change my behavior right now if you say, if you do this, you'll live 10 years longer. 10 years longer than what? I don't know. So chances are I'll just go on my normal ways and do things what I do until I run into a brick wall. And I don't know why we do that. We know that's not good, but that's just human beings, right? So if we want to have a technology trend that help us out and lengthen our life and improve the quality, I don't want to live miserably for a long time, like you said, under some kind of rigid training because I have to use this technology. Then that technology, the piece of technology has to be not interfering with your daily routines, daily lives, or your behaviors. And we all have very different behaviors, various behavior, but there's a general trend. We don't want to change that behavior, right, our daily routine. So when we come up with the technology that help us out, it has to be convenient and has to be almost non-existent. We don't even know it's there and it's helping us out. And that's where the challenge is. That's why wearable technology and the digital health is such a big topic right now. It's a big piece of puzzle. I think it's solvable, but I have not seen a very conclusive solution yet. Yeah. But I think we'll see that in the next 2 or 3 years.
That's what I love about, is Sunny here, Sunny Vu from Misfit Wearables? His quote is a real keeper as it relates to wearables, because he was the one who said that wearables need to be either invisible or gorgeous. And I would tend to agree with that. I would add one other category, though, or qualifier to it, is it needs to be useful. Because I think we will tolerate a lot of sacrifices around gorgeous and invisible if it's incredibly useful. And I think that's probably where some of the wearables is headed.
Well, I can say from the optical industry, if it doesn't look good, people aren't going to wear it.
Right.
Bottom line.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Hi, Dr. Daniel Weiss from Florida. One of the things that you brought up before with the visual health makes me wonder, not just for vision, but for other concerns one might have about these devices, whether it's EMF, whether it's, we already had the era of wrist strain from repetitive stress injury from computer mice. Are there any standards being developed? Are people thinking about how can I design? Maybe the glass on the iPad should be different so that it doesn't lead to eye strain. Or maybe somehow these devices should be designed to some standards to prevent these kind of injuries from happening. Because if they're all going to be wired up and digitized up, those things are going to perhaps be concerns that people have.
That's an awesome question that I would love to hear the responses from some of the manufacturers. From an eye care provider standpoint, that's of the utmost importance, preserving vision and ocular health. And we do know that these devices have an impact. So is there a way that they can modify their technology to safeguard those things? Or are we having to make workarounds, such as the computer glasses, to really make sure we're protecting ourselves? So I guess that's a question for the industry people to really put some thought to and realize the impact that they're having. But great awareness builder question.
Yeah. There we go.
Thanks. Thinking about all these different metrics that are coming out, and we're able to sense now, the more that are coming, we're able to detect. Do you think there's a need from a user's point of view to come up with a singular index or in a way that Nike did with the fuel, just to really translate that, because ECG or blood oxygen levels or different data that to a non-physician, to your average Joe, what does that mean to them? Do we need? I think a gentleman, I forget his name, from talking about a Massimo product where they gave a singular index about your health index. I just, is there a need to translate all that data into a singular or identifiable value. So somebody could just look at their health band and it said 52, and then they know what that means, rather than, you know, lots of different values.
Great point.
I would say that we're already seeing it today. It's just now how do you standardize it so that you get a standardized approach? I mean, there are multiple ways that number is being accumulated today. We see it with some of the, you know, with some of the Fitbit activities. We see it, you know, with some of the Runkeeper activities that are already out there on the web. And we're seeing it, you know, as you saw mentioned earlier, the Massimo product that actually gives you a single number that sort of averages a bunch of inputs. And that's what we're, you know, so it now becomes a matter of then how do you normalize that data and how do you standardize that data so that you can now, you know, plug in, I can plug in, you know, 4 or 5 different devices, regardless of what manufacturer they're from, and be able to then collect that data and make sure that you're getting the same sort of feedback as if you will, in this case. So I think that's going to be something that's key and critical. You know, we still, even in the standards industry, have a discussion about what does BMI mean. And so, you know, we have to resolve those issues because BMI has certain implications down the road as well. So it's still a matter of figuring out what are the underlying standards from that perspective. And ultimately, that leads us to then start, you know, the second level of that is, how do I interact with my physician? You know, we're looking at things now coming out with Meaningful Use 3 under the patient-generated health data components. How do we begin to now interact with data that needs to go back to my physician after I've discovered something is wrong with me? So, you know, if I look at that number 52, that may not be anything critical for me, but if I've been running at a 25, maybe I want to ask my physician a question about that. So now I have to find an effective way to get that information over to my physician so that we can now have some real interpretation, some clinical observation perhaps in this case, to understand that. So I think there's still challenges ahead of us, but your point is it's starting to happen already. We're starting to see it. Now we just have to figure out how to make sure we can apply it equally across the spectrum.
One more question, anybody? Sounds good. Thank you very much, and thank the panel for a great presentation.